We're going to keep going with the quadratic formula, but this time we're going to focus on the entire formula and not just the discriminant. So we talked with the discriminant that we can tell just from that how many solutions we have. So we're going to use that kind of as our jumping off point to be able to then use the entire quadratic formula to find the solutions. So I have the formula back up here. Again, it should be somewhere prominent in your notes that you can use it as a reference and not have to memorize it and not have to kind of flip through your notes and find it. First thing you want to do when you're using the quadratic formula is to make sure it's in standard form. So you want to make sure everything's on one side of the equal sign and then you have a 0 on the other. You're going to write down your A, B, and C. So my A for this one is 1, my B is 3, my C is -5. And then you're going to use the formula. I would do the discriminant first. And the reason I would do the discriminant first is that kind of gives you an idea of what are we looking for. Are we getting 2 real answers? Are we getting 1? Are we getting none? So my discriminant is B squared minus 4AC. So 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times -5. And you can do it straight in your calculator just to show you. So 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times -5. We get 29. So that's going to be the number that it goes under the discriminant, or goes under the square root, excuse me. So now I'm going to go to the entire formula. It's the opposite of B plus or minus the square root. Now we know the discriminant is 29 over 2 times A. 2 times 1 is 2. So there's a couple ways to write your answers. If they want your answer to be written in terms of a rational, meaning leave it as a fraction, you would actually stop here. 29 is not a perfect square, the part that's under the square root, and 29 has no perfect square factor, so I can't do any more. If I could go further, I would use my basic square root simplifying to go further. If it wants decimal answers, I want to make sure you're comfortable with that as well, because you'll see a little bit of both. You'll see that ones that actually want you to leave it in a simplified answer and one that wants you to leave it in a decimal rounded answer. If you're doing it as a decimal rounded answer, you want to put it in your calculator with the entire numerator in parentheses. So you're going to type in -3. You can't do plus and minus at the same time in your calculator. So do one first, do plus first. Square root of 29. Close that parentheses, and then divide it by 2. So that's going to be one of your answers in decimal format. I think a lot of times it asks you to go 2 decimal places to the nearest hundredth, so I'm going to do that. So 1.19. And then here's a great shortcut so you do not have to retype all of this. You're going to go to second, and you're going to go to the enter button, which is the far bottom right-hand corner. And it's going to pull up the exact same thing you typed in. You want to use your left arrow to go over to the plus sign and switch it to a minus sign. What this is going to do is going to give you the other solution if you considered it to be a negative in front of the square root. Hit enter. Your other answer is -4.19. The other thing you can do on your calculator is if you were to graph this original function, so if you were to type in x squared plus 3x plus 5, or minus 5, minus 5, and hit graph, you should see that the parabola crosses the x-axis 2 times, and it looks like it happens right around 1 and right around -4. So you have a visual connection, you have your discriminant that tells you how many solutions you're going to get, and you have the actual formula that finds those solutions. All of these things connect. So this next one, again, A is 1, B is 2, C is -3. Discriminant, B squared minus 4AC. You can use a calculator if you'd like. So we get 4 plus 12, we get 16. When you get a discriminant that is a perfect square, we're going to be able to get this down to a really, really simple answer. So my formula is the opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of 16 over 2 times 1, which is 2. If you have a perfect square under the square root, you need to take that square root of that. So you get -2 plus or minus the square root of 16 is 4 over 2. So now to get those answers, these answers are going to be really simple. We're going to do one at a time. So we're going to start with the plus. So we're going to do -2 plus 4, enter, divided by 2. So one of my answers is 1. And then we're going to do -2 minus 4, enter, and then hit divided by 2. You can also put the entire numerator in parentheses if you want. So we get our two solutions to be +1 and -3. If you get solutions that are that clean, that rational, that means that you actually could have factored this to begin with and not used the quadratic formula. It also means that if you were to graph this on your calculator, so x squared plus 2x minus 3, that you would see it cross the x-axis at whole numbers, at the +1 and -3. So again, you have that connection between everything we've done. Next one, I'm just going to go underneath, or I'm going to go to the right here. So a is 3, b is -2, c is -6. So b squared, when b is negative and I square it, I'm just going to get a positive. So I'm just going to write 2 squared. I'm not going to write -2 squared unless I want to use parentheses. -4 times 3 times -6. Again, if it helps to use a calculator, 2 squared -4 times 3 times -6. I get 76. So my formula is opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of 76 over 2 times a. 2 times 3 is 6. So 76, we need to see if it has any perfect square factors. Any number go into 76 that's a perfect square. 76 divided by 4. Oh, there we go. First try. It is 4 times 19. So we get 2 plus or minus 2 root 19 over 6. So the way I got that is I took the square root of 4 and the square root of 19. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 19 stays. I can actually reduce this everything by a factor of 2. Notice I have a 2 in front. I have a 2 in front of the radical, and the 6 is divisible by 2. So I can actually write this as 1 plus or minus 1 square root of 19, or just the square root of 19, over 3. So that's the way I can simplify this. If I notice everything is divisible by 2, I can divide that all out by 2. All right, next one, I need to get the standard form first. So I'm going to subtract 1 to get it in standard form. So a is 2, b is 4, c is -1. So b squared minus 4 times a times c. I get 16 plus 8. I get 24 for my discriminant. So opposite of b, plus or minus square root of 24 over 2 times 2 is 4. Square root of 24 is going to break down into 4 and 6. So I'm going to get -4 plus or minus 2 root 6 over 4. I can divide everything by 2 again, so I get -2 plus or minus root 6 over 2. Or if it's a decimal one, you will save yourself some time if it allows you to give decimal answers. You can actually go back to here and type it in your calculator. So I want to show you this too, just so you give your options. So you're going to put the entire numerator in parentheses. So you're going to do -4 plus the square root of 24. Close out the parentheses of the numerator, divided by 4. One of your answers is 0.22. And then if I go second and enter, I can change that plus sign to a minus sign. And I can get my other answer of -2.22. So it really just depends on what they're looking for. If they want rational answers, if they want simplified answers versus decimal answers. This next one, I'm just going to move this way. You could go the other way, I guess. Doesn't matter either way. So you have -x squared plus 3x minus 1. So a is 1, b is 3, c is -1. So b squared, so 3 squared minus 4 times -1 times -1. I get 9 minus 4 is 5. So opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2 times 1 is 2. That will not simplify because 5 is not a perfect square, it doesn't have any perfect square factors. I could get a decimal just to kind of show you that calculator step one more time. I'm going to put parentheses -3 plus the square root of 5. Close your parentheses and divide by 2. So one of your decimal answers would be -0.38. And then if I hit second and enter, I'm going to change that plus sign to a minus sign to get my other answer of -2.61. And I could graph it on my calculator. I could go to my calculator, I could type in -x squared plus 3x minus 1, and I will see that it crosses the x-axis twice, and both times are pretty close to each other, and that would give me my 2 answers. We'll do one more with you just to show you one special thing that could happen. So with this one, we've got x squared minus 6x plus 9. So a is 1, b is -6, c is 9. So b squared, so 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9. you're actually going to get a discriminant of 0. And we talked about this. When you have a discriminant of 0, you will only get one answer. So these are going to be some of the easiest ones you're working with. So you have the opposite of b, so 6 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2 times a. 2 times 1 is 2. The square root of 0 is 0, no matter whether you're adding it or subtracting it. That's going to be 0. So you get 6 divided by 2, which is 3. You only have one solution. If you were to take a look at what it looked like graphically and type in x squared minus 6x plus 9, you would notice that your parabola touches the x-axis and never goes through it, just touches the x-axis. So that's what that is going to look like. Anything with a negative discriminant, I am not going to make you find imaginary answers. It is a pain, and it's not something we're going to talk about. But I do want you to realize that if you get something that has a negative discriminant, you're not going to get any real answers. And if you were to graph it, you would notice that it would never touch or cross the x-axis. And those are the basics of the quadratic formula.